I want to get into talking a little bit more about really this idea of creating significance and the difference between understanding the real difference between significance and success. And from there, I like to kind of pull that into talking a little bit more about your book. But let's just start there. Like the difference between significance and success. What does that mean to you?
Well, again, significance is lasting. A success might be a temporary win, but when you're looking to build a legacy or business of value or brand of value, I don't know. And again, this may differ from, person to person or entrepreneur to entrepreneur, but when you get into it, I don't know that you're looking to get out immediately, right? So the idea is to build something of lasting value and worth. And to your point, if you're going to put so much into it, particularly as a service provider, because direct to consumer is probably the hottest category there is right now, you definitely want to make the most of that significant experience. So what we're seeing is companies that have values, whether it's sustainability, which again should be the leading determinant for pretty much any business or brand at this point on the planet, but one that is not based on what I would call sort of dated values. So this significance aspect comes into not necessarily being self-promotional or self-aggrandizing, but it's about engagement, right? So there's a bigger conversation there. No pun intended, since we're on a podcast, but it really is about engagement and pulling people into that dynamic. It's not a one-way exchange, let's put it that way.
So it's the two-way relationship.
That's right.
That's what you're speaking to here, is that two-way relationship that's created. And I get really curious about how people promote themselves online and how they kind of do, handle their marketing and their content online. And even just with my own content, I've noticed that brands that just everything's about their company and their product and their service, the engagement's it's a ghost town. It's nobody, you might see a little bit of engagement. And I've always looked at, this is something recent, because I'm always how do you define this? I always think about engagement as movement. It's how much movement can you get, within a piece of content. So if you post something and you get a few likes and, if just say you get likes, that's a form of movement, right? But it's very different. I love content. Have you ever put out a post or seen a post and people are actually having conversations inside
within your channel,
within your thread? That's a completely different. And then you have people that might put, "This is amazing," fire emoji or whatever, and they put little comments like that. But it's just, you look at it, and I see measuring the success of that content based on the level of movement that's created within the threads or on that piece. Are they sharing it and talking about it? So that is that kind of that movement within the content and how they're putting themselves out there, creating that relationship. It's a two-way relationship.
Very much so. It should aim to inspire and educate. I mean, we work with some of the biggest thinkers in the world. I mean, these are people who are planning entire cities around the world. Not least of which we worked with so many deemed essential workers, designers, architects, construction contractors, people during the pandemic, given the housing boom, that when they post blueprints or ideas for reconciling really complex challenges, you see the level of engagement go up because it's so valuable. It's not just a pretty picture of a pretty room, right? It's showing people infrastructurally what goes into building something from the ground up, or rescuing something from a infrastructure disaster like plumbing, or how you completely renovate a full apartment building in real time, or a house due to historic preservation codes. So I find those to be kind of much more interesting than what we call vanity press. And to your earlier point, I think people follow people. That seems to be the new operating norm in media. And I think that's true. You'll follow your favorite writers, you'll follow your favorite podcasters. Will you necessarily follow the business as such? I think we are engaging more on the human level more than ever before. And that, I think, is largely driven by pandemic, and also because everybody's kind of zoomed out. I mean, it gets to the point where you just sort of see shapes at a certain point. It's not a super warm medium. Not that the internet is either. It's considered to be kind of a cold medium. It's just very functional. So I'm going to be very interested to see what happens, once everybody is moving forward into the next phase of our economy and interaction. I don't think Zoom's going anywhere. Because of the sheer convenience. But I do think, if you look at subscription levels for magazines, newspapers, podcasts, films, books, they're all exploding because people are taking the time that they spent commuting and doing all these other things and putting them into learning and experiencing and feeling on a new level. And I think that translates to business leadership as well. I think this will be a time that requires a lot of courage. I think business has always required a lot of risk taking, like no risk, no reward, and the sort of big T temperament to be a thrill seeker to a certain extent. When you start a business, it's almost like the most important relationship you have in your life because you put so much into it. So I think we're going to see this evolution, and it's already happening in real time out of necessity. Right? Because I think the way that people were doing things, it's just, it plateaued, and now we're on the precipice of doing things in an entirely new way. That's significant.
Yeah.